To KLOK, San Jose, San Francisco, and Oakland, the largest and most powerful Lazy radio station in America, a Principal Broadcasting-owned station.
Shah Peerally is a lawyer in California who has featured as a legal expert on major networks and publications such as NDTV, Times Now, San Jose Mercury News, Movers and Shakers, and other major publications. Shah Peerally Law Group handles immigration law and debt settlements. Listen to the Shah Peerally Law Show every Monday from 12 noon to 1 p.m. and Friday 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. on KLOK 1170 a.m. Shah Peerally is also offering a variety show on KLOK 1170 a.m. every Monday to Friday from 11 p.m. to midnight, covering music, entertainment, talent shows, marriage issues, and other social issues. Don't miss out on any of the shows.
ਕੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬਾਰ-ਬਾਰ ਸੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕ੍ਰੈਡਿਟ ਕਾਰਡ ਕੰਪਨੀਆਂ ਕਾਲ ਕਰਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸੂ ਕਰਨ ਦੀਆਂ ਧਮਕੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਹਨ, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਪੇਚੈਕ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਪੈਸਾ ਖਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਜਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਰਟੀ ਤੇ ਹੱਕ ਜਤਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ? ਕੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਵਿਰੁੱਧ ਜਜਮੈਂਟ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ? ਤਾਂ ਮੌਕਾ ਦਿਓ ਅਟਾਰਨੀ ਸ਼ਾਹ ਪਿਰਾਲੀ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਮਦਦ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਲਾਅ ਫਰਮ ਨੇ ਅਣਗਿਣਤ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੈਂਕਰਪਸੀ ਤੋਂ ਬਚਾਇਆ ਹੈ। ਸ਼ਾਹ ਪਿਰਾਲੀ ਲਾਅ ਗਰੁੱਪ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਮਸਲਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਡੀਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਜ ਹੀ ਕਾਲ ਕਰੋ 5107425887 ਤੇ 510-742-5887 ਤੇ ਜਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਵੈਬਸਾਈਟ ਵਿਜ਼ਿਟ ਕਰੋ www.peeralilaw.com।
क्या आप यू एंड मी के दोस्त बनेंगे? बनेंगे जरूर बनेंगे। So tune in every Tuesday from 11 p.m. to midnight in my show. It's all about you and me with Anuj Ji. So you'll meet every Tuesday. जियो दिल से।
Are you being sued? Are the credit card companies suing you? Garnishing your checks? Putting liens on your property? Do they have a judgment against you? Let attorney Shah Peerally help you. His law firm has saved many from bankruptcy. The Shah Peerally Law Group also focuses on immigration law. Call them today at 510-742-5887, 510-742-5887, or visit them at www.peeralilaw.com.
Are you looking for that dream house to make it into your cozy home? Or are you looking to buy or sell your house? For any of your real estate needs, please contact Amit Gambhir at 5102999361. जी हाँ, आपको लोन मॉडिफिकेशन और शॉर्ट सेल में भी मदद चाहिए तो आपको अपना आशियाना बनाना है। सिर्फ कॉल करना है अमित गंभीर को, जिनका फ़ोन नंबर है 5102999361, 5102999361. With his personal attention and dedication to his profession, Amit Gambhir can make your real estate process easy and personable. Do you own a business but do not want to have the stress of maintaining your own accounting? Your solution is Brett Harrell CPA. जी हाँ, आपका solution है Brett Harrell CPA specializes in personal and business accounting, bookkeeping and payroll services. Call Brett Harrell at 925-998-9764. Business or individual tax preparation के लिए Brett Harrell is giving special discount 20% off for all Shah Peerally Law Group clients and also for the listeners of Shah Peerally Law Group radio show. So do not waste your time and call Brett Harrell. अपना टाइम ना वेस्ट करें, कॉल कीजिए छेती 925-998-9764 for all your accounting and tax needs.
ਕੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬਾਰ-ਬਾਰ ਸੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕ੍ਰੈਡਿਟ ਕਾਰਡ ਕੰਪਨੀਆਂ ਕਾਲ ਕਰਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸੂ ਕਰਨ ਦੀਆਂ ਧਮਕੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਹਨ, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਪੇਚੈਕ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਪੈਸਾ ਖਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਜਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਰਟੀ ਤੇ ਹੱਕ ਜਤਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ? ਕੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਵਿਰੁੱਧ ਜਜਮੈਂਟ ਫਾਈਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ? ਤਾਂ ਮੌਕਾ ਦਿਓ ਅਟਾਰਨੀ ਸ਼ਾਹ ਪਿਰਾਲੀ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਮਦਦ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਲਾਅ ਫਰਮ ਨੇ ਅਣਗਿਣਤ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੈਂਕਰਪਸੀ ਤੋਂ ਬਚਾਇਆ ਹੈ। ਸ਼ਾਹ ਪਿਰਾਲੀ ਲਾਅ ਗਰੁੱਪ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਮਸਲਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਡੀਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਜ ਹੀ ਕਾਲ ਕਰੋ 5107425887 ਤੇ 510-742-5887 ਤੇ ਜਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਵੈਬਸਾਈਟ ਵਿਜ਼ਿਟ ਕਰੋ www.peeralilaw.com.
And now, from the San Francisco Bay Area studios, KLOK proudly presents to you the prominent attorney Shah Peerally for the Shah Peerally Law Show, coming at you with over 50,000 watts of power. The Shah Peerally Law Show, where all your views matter.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Shah Peerally for the Shah Peerally Law Show, and today I have with me,
This is Wakas.
and I have also Marco on the board with us. And today I am going to introduce you to a legend, an icon in immigration law. He has featured on CNN, Good Morning America, Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. He even testified for the Senate, for the Judiciary Subcommittee. And he's rated among the top lawyers in California and the United States. And I introduce you to today on our show. It's an honor to have him. He's a friend and someone who has inspired, because thanks to him, pretty much today, I am an immigration attorney. The only one, Mr. Carl Shusterman. Carl, are you there?
I sure am. Thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you so much for inviting me on this show.
Well, Carl, you deserve it. You are one of the best attorneys I know out there, and you only inspire people like me to become like you. So,
well, that's very nice to hear that. I had no idea, frankly.
Well, I've been following you since I'm in law school, and Carl, I've pretty much live off on all your writings, and I've learned a lot from you and your website. And the website for Carl Shusterman is Shusterman.com. Am I pronouncing your name right? My accent.
You got it perfectly. Yes.
Okay. Shusterman, and his phone number. He's located in Los Angeles, right, Carl? Am I mistaken?
Yes, we are. We're in downtown Los Angeles.
Exactly. And the number to call if you have any questions is 213-623-4592. I repeat it, 213-623-4592. And of course, the weekend he's not going to be there, but you can call probably on Tuesday because Monday is Martin Luther King Day, and I think his office is not open. Right, Carl?
That is correct. And really, I have to caution people. We have a system where they make appointments online. So I don't want anybody to just call up and have questions because you will not be able to get through. But if you go online and go to our website, there's a button that says schedule consultation. So if that's something you're interested in, you can go to the web page.
Okay, that's great. That's good. You pointed that out to me, and I apologize for that. So let us, Carl, talk a little bit about. You have been practicing immigration law for a long time, and
making me feel very old.
Not in a bad way, in a good way. And Carl, like I was mentioning, your work has been recognized by pretty much all your peers, and also even the Senate. And you have testified on the Senate. I wanted to ask you that question before we jump into immigration law. What's your experience about testifying in the Senate? How did you feel on that day?
Nervous, I guess, like anybody would. I think one good quality attorneys should have is to just think outside the box.
Yes.
And I won't bore you with the whole story, but the American Immigration Lawyers Association has a lobby day every March, and we fly out to Washington and talk to the congressmen and the senators and so on. One year, I think in 2000, I was having a meeting with some of our attorneys and Senator Feinstein from California, and I didn't want to be there late, so I made sure I got a taxi and got to downtown Washington, D.C., and I was pacing the hall there, and somebody walked out of the corner office, not of Feinstein, but of a senator from Kansas named Sam Brownback, and I remembered one of the Washington, D.C. lawyers had told me that somebody from that office wanted to talk to me about a immigration subject. So this girl walked out of the office, and she said, "You're not looking for me, are you?" And I said, I was just so surprised. I said, "Well, that depends who you are." And I said, "I know somebody from your office is actually looking for me, but I'm meeting with Senator Feinstein." And when I told her that and what the subject was, it was her. And about a year later, he became head of the Immigration Subcommittee in the Senate, and I arranged a meeting between maybe 10 attorneys from the Immigration Lawyers Association and Senator Brownback. And I don't know, I must have said something right, because a couple months later, he invited me to testify before the committee and to help draft legislation. And, it really felt good to be on that side of it, to be able to contribute in that way.
Well, that's a very interesting story. Plus, also, I'm very much not only a lawyer, I'm very much an activist, and I think if we get more lawyers who can push for good immigration policies, I am all for it. And you know how it goes in the immigration system. I don't have to tell you.
I totally agree with you.
Unfortunately, most lawyers are just pretty much practicing, and not to put down any of my colleagues, just to let them know, it's like we need to be more activism. We need more activism on this. We need to push for good policies. And I know American Immigration Lawyers Association is doing an excellent job, probably one of the best lawyers association out there. Totally worth it to be a member. And I hope, sometimes we get really disappointed with the rules, and that's why I always tell all my listeners and my clients, until I see a law passed, I won't believe in it. Sometimes I get caught in it too, just like an HR 3012. I got so much caught in it. I was hoping that the Senate, but I don't think they even brought it to the Senate. So
yes, I mean it's sort of at the Senate, but Senator Grassley has put a hold on it. So
yes.
Very frustrating.
Very, very frustrating. Carl, now we're going to jump into the subjects. For one, the new prosecutorial discretion policy. Very interesting policy for those who don't know about that. This is, I call it a way for the government to save money. Sorry to say that, but I'm very blunt on that. The truth is that it might be helpful for many people. Before I start on that, and I'm pretty sure you're going to agree with me, it's not an amnesty, okay? Many people have taken that as an amnesty on both sides, including, unfortunately, even some of our colleagues have thought that it was possibly some kind of amnesty. The truth is not, and I think you will agree with me on that, right?
Totally.
Yes, and unfortunately also in our community, many people who are non-lawyers have taken advantage of this to start collecting money from people, stating that they can get them a work permit, which we know how it works because pretty much it's on deferred action. And I don't know if you have been able to get any of them work permits so far. I've not really tried. But let's talk a little bit about that. So first of all, could you just give us a brief overview of what is a prosecutorial discretion we are talking about here?
Yeah, and maybe I'm a good person to talk about it because 30 years ago I was a prosecutor for the Immigration Service.
Wow. Good I didn't cuss at them, huh? I didn't, right? Okay.
Some of our opponents, some of the people who are very anti-immigration, accuse us of being open borders people. But frankly, if we were open borders people and anybody could just walk over to the U.S. and get a green card, we'd be out of business. So that I don't think there's too many immigration attorneys that are open borders. I mean, there has to be some kind of selection process, and frankly, I don't regret the time that I was a prosecutor because a lot of the time I worked in federal prisons and so on, and there are people that should not, in my view anyway, should not have the right to stay in the United States.
I agree with you on that.
But there's 11 million people who the government could possibly deport in the U.S. because they don't have any papers to stay here legally. But each deportation, but when you add up the cost of jailing the person and giving them a hearing before a judge and a prosecutor and so on, each deportation cost about $23,000.
Wow.
So, I think most people, no matter what their immigration status is, they're very aware that the government is running huge deficits now, and both political parties are trying to do what they can to cut down the amount of government spending. So in reality, when you talk about $23,000 per person, the amount allocated to the Immigration Service allows them to deport about 400,000 people a year. And the Obama administration is is hitting those numbers.
Exactly.
I mean, there's been no administration in the past that's ever deported anywhere near 400,000 people. But frankly, if you take the amount of people that are in jail for different serious crimes, if you take the people that, just routinely cross the border illegally, get deported, come back again, and take the people that have gotten into different kinds of immigration fraud, fraudulent marriages, and so on, you're easily over the 400,000 people. So the Obama administration has said, look, the immigration courts are so clogged up. And in fact, I have a case up in your area where at first there's an organization I represent up above Sacramento, and they had two members of their organization. One was a citizen, and one was from the same country, and they're married. I've been up there at this organization for years. I've always seen them together. But some people go into these marriage interviews very unprepared, and they had an attorney in Sacramento, and I don't know why they weren't prepared better, but they were actually asking them questions like, do the sheets on your bed, do they have stripes? Do they run horizontally or vertically? I mean, it sounds like I'm making that up, but I'm really not.
I believe you. I just had one yesterday, exactly like that.
If you're, I'm not saying you're like me, but my wife is very observant. I have to look up at the colors of the ceiling right now, or if you asked me over the phone and I couldn't look up, I wouldn't remember.
I am exactly like you.
Okay. Well, but when you're in front of that interview, it's like trying to read the bottom line of the eye chart, which I always try to do when I in the optometrist department, and you don't want to do that, because if you don't remember, you should just say I don't remember. Otherwise, there'll be conflicting answers. So, in this particular case, not to belabor it any further, they said, well, we think it's a fraudulent marriage, and they put the male, the husband, into deportation proceedings in San Francisco.
Oh, my God.
We refiled the case. I flew up, and we had a 20-minute interview, and they granted it the second time.
Yes.
Just last week.
I got one exactly like yours 2 weeks ago.
Okay, there you go.
Exactly.
I mean, it's hard. I mean, this is standard fare for the Immigration Service, and they put him under deportation proceedings in San Francisco because there's no courts in Sacramento. And now that the petition from his wife is approved and they're saying the marriage is legitimate, we thought there would be no problem in asking the government to terminate this case. And the government came on. We were doing this over the phone, and the government told the judge, "No, we don't want it to be terminated."
Really?
Yeah. So
they did mind. They terminated.
The judge, who is a very fine judge, she had to reset the case, and it's scheduled for June 2014.
Oh, wow. You know what?
So,
I just want to interrupt you on this. I had exactly the same situation. In fact, in this case, the government attorney wrote the motion himself and sent it to me, and we terminated. That's
fantastic.
That is amazing, because he wrote the whole thing. He said, "Shah, I don't think we're going to argue this. I'm going ahead and terminating the case." And in this case, to be honest with you, the judge was not nice to me. She was very rude. She was very very inquisitive with my clients, and the government attorney made it for me. He agreed with no objection, and we filed it, and they terminated. Amazing. This is something very interesting that just happened, what you just a story, because
well, we have similar cases, but you had a much better result. I mean,
but that's a good point.
I will not let my client be deported, but we're going to have to wait 2.5 years just to have the hearing come up again. And this is what the Obama policy is about. It's like, let us not clog up the courts with these kind of cases, because then you'll have criminals that, their lawyers will file some kind of objection, and they're here in the society with you and me and our families for the next few years until they get their next hearing. So, it's really a very smart public policy, pro-enforcement type of policy, but since we have a very fractured political debate in the country, the opponents, are saying, "Oh, it's Obama's amnesty," And you're right in your comments before that notarios or even, unfortunately, sometimes unscrupulous attorneys are taking money from people and saying it is an amnesty, and it's just not true.
Well, you know what the point that really hurt me. I got a call from a client on the radio, stating that he paid $1,500 to get a work permit to that because there's an amnesty. And when I said on the radio that this is not true, he called me back in the office and got into a fight with me because he was not agreeing with me at all, saying that no, that lawyer, he knows him for years, he took the money and he trusted him. And guess what? He never got anything for a fact. I told him he might get something because if there is a deferred action, they will be applying the EAD based on that.
Right.
But the truth is that I think nobody has gotten it yet. I don't know if you got anybody who got it, but so far I have not applied for it, honestly.
Well, and immigration law is complicated, and I know listeners to the show, and I don't expect my clients to be immigration attorneys.
Yes.
But there's all these things like orders of supervision for people that are under final orders of deportation or deferred action. And we do have many clients with this. We have clients with private bills from their members of Congress and so on. And sometimes we are able to get them work permits. But the Obama policy itself is who we're going to try to deport and who we're going to leave alone. But the people they leave alone don't necessarily become legal, get work permits, or anything. They just don't try to deport them from the U.S. That's all.
Exactly, and the discretionary policy is basically, the prosecutorial discretionary policy is what has been claimed to be an amnesty, and I just wanted to, for those listeners who just joined in, we are discussing with the famous attorney Carl Shusterman. His website is shusterman.com, and you can make an appointment to his website, and I apologize earlier, I gave the phone number. So Carl, anything else we should add on this policy? How is it playing out for you?
It's just that it's at the beginning. Everybody's waiting to see the results in San Francisco and Los Angeles. Right now, it's mainly operating in Baltimore, Maryland. It's a 30-day pilot project, and then it's supposed to move to all these other cities. I'm a little bit lucky in that. I don't know if this is luck or not. I didn't consider it luck when it happened, but they've already taken since I used to work for the Immigration Service back in the 80s when I hired attorneys to do deportation defense. I would always hire out of the government, and a lot of the people then would get chosen to be immigration judges and go back to the government again. So I have 5 ex-attorneys. I think it's the world record. I don't know, but who are judges. So I'm always talking to the judges and saying, "Have you seen these cases develop, in Los Angeles and so on?" And pretty much the answer is no. But in spite of that, I had a case about 2 weeks ago that I don't usually do these cases personally because there's 7 attorneys in our office, but it was a cancellation of removal case. The U.S. citizen husband had a very terrible disease, and he asked if I would go in personally, so I did do that. And I had his wife, who was illegally in the U.S., testify, and then I was going to have him and his doctors testify, and then the government attorney just stepped up and said, the government will concede that that we establish sufficient hardship, and we agree that he should be given cancellation of removal.
Nice.
So I don't think that's the prosecutorial discretion policy, because otherwise they just would have terminated the hearing and let his wife go back home. But it's still illegal. So this way she got a green card. But I can tell you 30 years ago, I did not do that. We did not have that mindset. We tried to fight each case, and it was really nice to see that the government is using their sense. And it was a very young guy. I would say he was in his 30s, the prosecutor for the government. And I just looked at him and smiled, and so did the judge, and she granted our client her green card, and that was the end of the case. It was very quick.
That was very, very nice. And that's actually what happened in that other case I was mentioning. He pretty much called me and he himself said, Shah, it looks very obvious. And what I offered as proof on this case is I offered them to go to the couple's house and check themselves. So the I-130 got approved, and the I-45, they refused to adjudicate the I-45 because it was in court. And then when it got terminated, they approved the green card automatically. So
that's fantastic.
I just hope those kind of things continue. There's more good sense. Unfortunately, so far all the government attorneys I've dealt with has been very, very nice. But I had my share also of the one that really kind of were rude, or even to a point that not to mention, I've had a case where I was insulted in court because of my race. And the judge put that on the decision. She even asked me if she was going to file a complaint against the state bar against that attorney, that government attorney. So sometimes it's kind of interesting, the kind of cases you get, but most of the time, luckily, there are human beings on the other side, government side.
They really are. I spent 6 years working for you. We used to call it the Immigration and Naturalization Service, and of course there are some people that are jerks, but there are some people that are private immigration lawyers that probably you and I know that are jerks too.
Exactly.
But there's a lot of really nice, fair people who are just trying to do their job there, and it seems like in the last couple of years things have gotten a lot more reasonable than they have been in the past.
I agree with you. I was very, very proud to deal with this prosecutor and this government attorney, and I'm very, very thankful. I'm not going to mention his name, but he was so nice that, like I said, he even he prepared the motion himself and sent it for me to sign. He said, "Don't worry, Shah, don't need to write it. I'll write it, just sign it, and we'll go ahead and get rid of this case. There's no need to fight this." So, Carl, since we were talking about this very, very interesting topic, now I am going to move to a next topic, something which is come as a proposal right now, which is the USCIS is proposing a new waiver policy for illegal immigrants. So I should not call them illegal, probably undocumented people, because I don't believe anybody is illegal in my concept. So let us jump into this subject. This is another interesting issue. I'll let you explain first why this is interesting and what are we expecting in this proposal. Could you please elaborate on this?
Sure, and I have to apologize to the listeners, but I do have to go back in time a little to explain what the problem was that they're trying to fix right now.
Go ahead.
Back in 1996, the Congress passed and President Clinton signed a very, very harsh immigration law, and one of the provisions in the law said that
a horrible law.
Yes. If you stayed here over 180 days unlawfully, and then you went back home to get your green card, to apply for the green card, you would need a waiver to come back within 3 years, and I'll explain what a waiver is in a second. And that if you stayed in the U.S. over 1 year unlawfully, you would have to go back for 10 years or get a waiver. And a waiver is, if it's going to be, and the words are this, extreme hardship to a citizen or a permanent resident, parent or spouse, not children. You can have 6 kids born in the U.S., but the hardship to them does not count. You can have a terrible disease, but the hardship to you doesn't count. It only counts if it's going to be a hardship to a citizen or green card holding spouse or parent. But even in that case, let's say, let's use the usual case. Somebody comes over from Mexico and marries a United States citizen, and they snuck into the U.S., or in a lot of cases, their parents brought them over, and they were 6 years old, and now it's 25 years later, and until they applied to go to college, they didn't even know they were not born in the U.S. because their parents always told them they were born in the U.S.
Yes.
So now these poor people, they've worked, they've got good grades and so on, and they're stuck in this terrible position. It's not just from Mexico. It's, there are people from other countries. I had a fellow from India a couple of years ago who was a citizen, and his wife had come over on a K-1, which we both know is a fiancé visa,
Exactly.
to marry somebody else. And guess what? When she got to the U.S., the guy didn't want to marry her anymore.
Yeah.
He had another
And you're
girlfriend,
stuck. Yeah.
but he didn't bother telling her that. And if you come over in that category, you cannot get a green card in the U.S. You have to go back to your country because you can only get the green card by marrying the guy who brought you over, and that guy didn't want to marry her anymore. So she'd been married 10 years to my client, and it was a terrible situation. Fortunately, we went before a judge and got cancellation of removal, but, that's one case out of, maybe 1% of the people have enough hardship to qualify to do that. But I remember he was very afraid to send her back to India, and, whether it's India, Mexico, Philippines, whatever country we're talking about, it's always very scary to go back because you have to apply for the waiver in your country.
Yes.
And when we put together these applications for extreme hardship, usually there may be about 200 pages of exhibits. But I have seen people go down there, who are represented by notarios and so on, and they'll have their marriage certificate and an affidavit from their wife, and that's it. And that's people playing with other people's lives to do such a minimal job on the waiver application.
And worse, taking their money.
Exactly. And so they go down there, and even if the application is good, even if it's well prepared, even if it gets approved, you can be in that other country for 6 months to a year. So there's a separation of families, and sometimes it's the sole breadwinner of the family who's abroad, and the people lose their homes, people go on welfare. It's really a crazy system. So the new proposal, which just came out about a week and a half ago, would let people who can prove hardship, and this is very important because you can get a waiver, remember, from a green card spouse or green card parents or citizen spouse or citizen parents. The new policy only applies if it's going to be hardship to citizens, not to green card holders.
Yes.
And if that's the case, they will allow you to apply for the waiver in the U.S.
Yes.
and wait for the result in the U.S. And then when you go to the other country, if there's no other problems, because this does not waive fraud, does not waive criminal conduct, does not waive anything else. So it doesn't waive a previous deportation. So people need to know it only waives unlawful presence. That's the one thing.
Yes.
And when they go to that country, they can get their green cards and come back, in a matter of weeks rather than months.
This is going to be an amazing breakthrough if it goes through, I think. The question now, Carl, is, sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to ask you that question. They are going to allow people to file for this inside United States and wait. If it is approved or not, then they can leave and come back. But the question is that many people have asked me, will that put them under the radar of the USCIS for a deportation?
I think the answer is clear that it will. So there's an obvious tie-in between this and what we were talking about before, the prosecutorial discretion. If you're married to a citizen and you don't have any crimes and you haven't committed any fraud and so on, one would think that even though you are under the radar, they would use prosecutorial discretion and not try to deport you from the United States. But on the other hand, everybody I talk to about it, I have to tell them, you are taking some risk, It might not be a big risk, but we have to submit these papers to the Immigration Service so they know what your address is, they know everything about you. If you're not willing to take the risk, then you're going to have to do this in your own country. But frankly, even if your spouse files a petition for you, he or she is revealing your address. You might have to go in for an interview. So, to me, you're taking a risk one way or another. So this is less of a risk if this policy goes through. Right now, it's just a proposal. We were on a phone call last Monday that the Immigration Service set up. I think there must have been 1,000 people on this phone call, and everybody would make suggestions and ask questions, but immigration didn't give answers. They just said, "Thank you for making that suggestion, and we're going to take that under advisement," and so on. The one thing they said was, with regard to timing, do not expect this to become a policy until at the earliest at the end of 2012.
Okay, so we have a long way to go, and hoping that what is your, I don't want to ask you to guess, what do you think are the chances?
I think the chances are pretty good because, this is not something that has to pass through Congress. This is something that the Obama administration is doing. Mm-hmm. Although, I know our politics don't have much to do with this, but I am a supporter of President Obama's policies on immigration. I know he's received a lot of criticism from immigration advocates for not doing enough, but I think the Congress is not in much of a mood with the high unemployment to pass bills to legalize people that don't have papers right now, or even people that are very high skilled and are waiting in these enormous lines. They can't seem to get that legislation through. So I for one, would cut President Obama a break and say, I think he's doing more administratively than I've seen any president. You were talking about how long I've been doing this, and I do have to kind of laugh because when I started with the Immigration Service, the president's name was Gerald Ford, wow. And then Jimmy Carter, and then and Ronald Reagan and Bush. Wow. So I've been through about 6 presidents as an immigration attorney, and I have to say, out of those 6 presidents, I think President Obama has done more administratively without having to put a bill through Congress to help immigrants than anyone else. But I think that every president has to look at political reality, and he's up for a very tough election this year. I think he needs the Hispanic vote, and I think these kind of policies are what's going to help cement that vote for him. So I don't think he's going to promise this, get reelected, and then renege on this policy. That would make him look very, very bad.
I agree with you 100% on that. One thing, hats off to President Obama. He has been able to find ways within the system to pass some of, not a lot, but at least some things that are right when it comes to immigration. And we have to really, and here I'm not trying to tell people to vote for Obama. I'm just telling the truth. Having studied a lot of those policies from different presidents, I think he has been able to do a lot with limited means, and hats off to him.
Right. Because, we all, people who remember this, I remember getting very excited when his predecessor, President Bush, came out for, what was obviously an amnesty. Amnesty was like a dirty word, so they didn't call it that. But then the Congress totally did not consider that, and I didn't see him do anything administratively to try to further those goals. But Obama is trying to do it administratively, and I think it's very important that when the proposed regulations are published, that people actually take the time, and this, anybody can do this. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't even have to be an immigrant, but because a lot of families of citizens and immigrants are being split apart by the present policy. I think if we want to be sure it's going to go through, we should have thousands of people write in supporting the policy and then maybe even advocating positive changes. I don't know why they're only limiting it to people who can show hardship to citizen relatives. I think the law says that you can get a waiver with green card holding relatives, and I think, I'm certainly going to write in and say I think that his policy is good, but it should be expanded.
Well, we need to, since we have a platform right now, I make a call on all our listeners. If you want to know more about this, you can give us a call at the office, the number 510-742-5887. And also you can check the website for call, which is shusterman.com. And again, I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name right.
No, you are. It's perfect.
Okay. So, because I look very much Indian, but my language of origin is French because I come from Mauritius.
I saw that. You're from Mauritius. I only know Mauritius because some of my friends took their honeymoons there because it's supposed to be so beautiful. I've never been there.
Well, you should go. Mark Twain went there and he said God created Mauritius first and made a copy and made paradise.
That's wonderful. I love that.
So before I go, I have Waqas with me, who was our foreign legal consultant. He wanted to ask you a quick question,
Sure.
if you know the answer. And go ahead, Waqas.
Yes, thank you very much, Carl. This is a really, really great opportunity. I'm a law student, and this is a very great opportunity for me to hear you guys on special immigration side, because I'm basically the attorney from the Pakistan, and I'm a part of Shah Peerally Law Group as a foreign legal consultant. Mm-hmm. But I have a very quick question about, as you mentioned earlier in your speech, that we have in the United States more than 11 million illegal or undocumented persons. So what do you think? What do you think? If what's your suggestions to the government, or as a legend immigration attorney in the United States? What do you think? What would be the best way to legalize this person, all the 11 million undocumented or illegal persons, to contribute something to come back in this in the system? To contribute some kind of a revenue, or the persons, of course, the 11 million people's living in there and they're working illegally and they are not contributing towards to tax or IRS. And what would you think about it?
Well, I think that there's maybe contrasting visions. I mean, at one time, I think in the 1920s. There was a strong movement, and I'm using this as a basis of comparison to that alcohol, was terrible, and frankly, I see a lot of negative effects myself. I've drunk drivers and so on. So they had a prohibition movement to ban alcohol, and the only thing that really did is it set up these terrible mafia-like groups that would have speakeasies and so on. There was a lot of crime, and then when Roosevelt became president, they passed an amendment and they got rid of prohibition because it was a good idea, but it wasn't realistic. Right now, people are saying, we have rules to follow. If you want to get into this country, you have to follow these rules. My wife happens to be from the Philippines. She's always followed the rules. She worked with me at the Immigration Service. But when you want to get your brother or sister over from the Philippines, it takes 23 years.
Wow.
And then their kids who weren't even born when you applied are already too old by the time the 23 years pass to come with their parents. So none of her brothers and sisters ever came. It's a system that has a lot of limitations. And when my grandparents came over to the U.S., as long as you weren't a criminal or had some terrible disease, they just let you in.
That's
and I'm not saying we should go to that system, but obviously people have come across the border. They're working. The vast majority of them don't have criminal records. They haven't committed fraud. We have to move to a program, in my view, that would integrate them into society, make sure there's English classes, make sure they're paying their taxes. A lot of them have kids that are citizens, maybe even spouses that are citizens, have them pay fines and so on, but they give them temporary visas and then make them part of the system so that they can eventually become U.S. citizens. I think that, in conjunction with the huge increase in border control along the southern border and the fact that less people crossed over from Mexico illegally last year than any time in the last 20 years, means that we have pretty strong border enforcement now. Mm-hmm. So let's now bring the other side, the people who have been living for years in the U.S. Let's have a program to let the people that are really worthy of this legalize their status.
I agree with you.
Thank you very much, sir. That is a really great privilege for me to talk to you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your question, and good luck. In the immigration field, it's something that's made me very happy. I mean, yes. It's nice to be able to go to work for 35 years and look forward to what you're going to do.
That's true.
And that's been my privilege, and I hope that you feel the same way about it.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, and actually I do, Carl, because I'm an immigrant myself. I pretty much struggle a lot. I come from a very modest family, and immigration law, my prayer, and I'm a religious person, and my prayer was, God, help me find something in law that I will be able to help people and make a living, and immigration law was a perfect thing. And the satisfaction of saving a family from deportation is priceless. So
you're exactly right.
So that's where we are talking to Carl Shusterman, ladies and gentlemen, for our listeners who just joined in. Carl Shusterman is one of the greatest attorneys I know in his field in immigration law. So if you want to know more about Carl, you can check his website, shusterman.com. And if you don't get it on the radio, you can always call my office tomorrow. I can put you in contact on the website.
I should say one thing, and it is not to promote my practice or anything like that, but earlier in the show, I probably disappointed some people who, were prepared to call on Tuesday with their questions for free, because we just would be totally overwhelmed if we had that kind of system. So, but what we do try to do, and I know, Shaw, that you do the same thing. So, but some of the lawyers are coming out. They have newsletters. We have a free newsletter that goes out to about 60,000 people. If you go on our site, you can subscribe. If for any reason you don't like it, you can simply unsubscribe. We don't want anybody to get it who doesn't like it. We have Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, blogs, lots of things that you can sign up for, and they're all for free. Yes. So that is a way to get at least some of the questions answered.
Yeah. Well, just to let all our listeners know that even us, we don't do free consultation, because the problem with that is that if I start doing free consultation, I will not have time for my paid clients. The only free time I usually give to our clients are on the radio. So just let everybody know, don't think because Carl has been nice to volunteer his time on the radio. If you want to get a full consultation, you will probably have to pay, but it's worth your money, because I think we have acquired enough knowledge now at this point when we are answering a question. The time, and people are satisfied, to be honest. Every time they have to pay for consultation, they are happy. Carl, what's going to happen, because we have two more subjects to talk, if you have some time, I will make you stay a little bit more than the 11
That's
o'clock.
fine. That's
okay,
fine.
so
no problem at
only
all.
thing is that around just before 11, there will be a station break, and we will continue. So we have, I think, Marco, how much time we have before the station break? We have 6 minutes more. So let us continue on this. And Carl, the conversation is so interesting. I'm getting a lot of feedback on Facebook, because I'm not taking any calls today. We will be taking calls probably after the 11:15 or something. But right now we are talking about some very, very interesting subjects in immigration law. And again, ladies and gentlemen, you are talking to Carl Shusterman, who is one of, I'll say it again, and I'm not saying that just because I know Carl I'm saying it because he really deserves this title. He's an immigration guru, someone who has basically pretty much, to be honest with you, Carl, just to mention, I was mentioning that earlier, I was telling the truth. I pretty much learned a lot on immigration law. In the I was talking a lot about this earlier, about the fact that I learned so much about immigration law from your newsletter. Actually, I've been subscribed to your newsletter for I think years now, and I've learned a lot from it, especially the fact that you put it in a very simple language. So now the next subject we're going to talk about, which we get a lot of calls on, by the way, and to be honest with you, even I get very much confused about it, is the Child Status Protection Act. The Child Status Protection Act, for those who don't know, I will let Carl a little bit describe it, is basically it prevents a child to age out in certain conditions to be able to obtain their permanent residence. So can you quickly, briefly tell us about the Child Status Protection Act and the new lawsuit and what's happening to it right now?
Okay, I don't know if I can do it quickly, but I'll try.
No, you have your time.
It is complicated, but let's see if I can break it down.
We have 4 minutes. Let me just interrupt
4
you.
minutes?
We have 4 minutes, but there will be a break, and we can continue after that. So if you want just to talk about Child Protection Status Protection Act quickly in that 4 minutes, and then when we move to the after the 11 station break time, we can go into details on the lawsuit.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the particular section that I'm going to be talking about is that the Child Status Protection Act was passed by Congress, signed by President Bush in 2002, because a lot of people were waiting in line for, as I mentioned, up to 23 years to get their green cards. And usually the family immigrates together, the mother, father, and the kids. But when you're waiting in line 23 years, a lot of those kids are no longer kids. They're over 21, and then they don't qualify to come with their families. So one provision of the Child Status Protection Act says that the amount of time that the visa petition, the I-130 petition, that the relative is sponsoring, the parent or the employer, the I-140 employer is sponsoring the employee, the amount of time that it is pending is subtracted from the child's age. So if the child is then 23 by the time the parents are ready to get green cards, but if the petition has been pending for 3 years, then that is subtracted from the age. So the child becomes 20, and since that's under 21, the child's is able to come with the parents. What we're litigating in court, and I'll have to wait till after the break to explain what's going on with the litigation, is what happens if the petition of that 23-year-old was only pending for 1 year instead of 3 years. You subtract the 1 year from the 23-year-old age, and the child's still 22. There is a provision that covers it, but both we and the government attorneys do not agree, and this is being fought out in court right now, what it means.
Okay, great. So, Carl, let us hold on to that thought. Don't go anywhere. We're going to take the break in a few minutes, and we're going to run some of our sponsors' ads, and then we will be back. So please just hold on with us and don't go anywhere. We're just going to play some ads, and we'll be back. So keep that thought here, and thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Carl Shusterman with for the Shah Peerally Law Show. It's an honor to have him. Carl is and again I say it, I repeat it, and I believe it sincerely. He's a guru in immigration law, a master. He knows a lot of things that many lawyers can learn from, and not only lawyers, a lot of people. And just since you mentioned the Philippines, we have a lot of Filipinos listening today, and I say mabuhay to them. I think you speak. Am I saying it right, Carl? It's
yes,
mabuhay.
you are.
Mabuhay.
And by the way, I wanted to say, I have no idea. You said that somebody had insulted you in court. I I assume they didn't say you're from Mauritius and we don't like people from Mauritius.
What
but
happened is
I don't know what your background is at all.
Exactly. Well, the truth is that I am from Mauritius, but I am a Muslim, and I was representing a Palestinian client, and at one point the prosecutor got upset at me. He said, "What are you, an Arab or something? Why are you saying all this stuff?" And the judge that day he took us on the side. He said, "If I hear," and then she asked me. She said, "I can ask for her to be punished, basically, in this case." And in her decision, she put it on paper that she was very, very upset with the government attorney for making those comments. So I will tell you a little bit about it after the break, after we talk about the Child Status Protection Act. So we're going to have the break, Carl, so don't go anywhere. Stay with us. And listeners, stay with us. We are here till midnight. This is a Shah Peerally Law Show. If you have questions, you can call us tomorrow, 510-742-5887. Thank you.
I can't do anything today. Need to file my